Good day and welcome to the F1rst Group Managing Your Perimeter podcast. This will be our sixth episode. In a previous life, I think I probably thought we've only done 4 or 5, but this is number 6. And an administrative request up front before we get started. If any of our listeners have any ideas or suggestions for topics that they would like us to delve into and cover, we'd really love to hear from you. You can get our email address off of the website, which hopefully is how you got to the podcast to begin with. And we'd love to hear comments, suggestions. We will read snarky comments. We may or may not reply to them. It just depends on the veracity of said comments. In today's episode, we're going to talk about fencing. It's not the most glorious subject, but it is in fact one of the first rings of a security plan that events of all sizes are going to deal with. And I'm really excited also to have another new host along with me today, Anna Reel. She really is the host with the most. I would talk a little bit about her, but I'm going to let her talk about herself, because probably if I go into it, there will be a severe degree of embarrassment. She may refuse to participate, and then this episode would be over really quick. And to violate that rule right off the top, Anna and I met probably about 10 years ago, and Anna, jump in if I'm
it was
way
10.
far off.
Nope, 10 years ago.
I was doing the perimeter security for the NATO summit in Chicago, and it was a pretty good sized job, and I was looking for people to help, and I always hit colleagues up for other folks that might be in that town and be available to work. So Anna was suggested, and we sat down in the coffee shop of the Chicago Hilton and had a cup of coffee, and I was impressed. I told her kind of what the expectations were, and she literally knocked it out of the park. I mean, I was amazed, surprised, impressed. The other interesting point about that is I also reached out to another friend of mine that I had worked with in the previous George H.W. Bush administration, which, yeah, y'all do the math, I'm old, but PJ O'Neill. So little did I know, I had the 2 principals of the F1rst Group in the mix, and it's kind of like, gee, look where we've gone from there. So Anna, over to you.
Yeah, it's great, Mel. Thank you so much. Yeah, the magic started with you. We're either going to blame it on you, or we're going to congratulate you as we continue this journey together.
I take full responsibility, but absolutely no blame.
No, it was great. No, and let's see how this goes today. It's definitely my inaugural podcast venture, but I'm here to help out, and this is what we're doing. We're going to talk fence today, and actually I was thinking about that as you were bringing up the subject of the fence and a couple of titles that I've been working on, and I think the power of good fence is exactly what we're going to call this one. But just to give you a brief outline of me, yes, 30 years of live event experience and working with the best of the best out here, and producing events all around the world, executing these events with fantastic teams, and then able to pull together, really good, talented people from the festival world and from the advanced world and politics to create F1rst Group and feel like, we all come together and work together and build things just like what Mel's talking about, NATO Summit and other events that we've been involved in, especially in this last year. We were really, really busy. But, F1rst Group, we put together this podcast specifically to talk about, event productions with an emphasis on the event perimeter and what goes into creating these perimeters. It's not just about putting a box around a box. I mean, there's lots of design components that go into it. It's very, very important. And, how do we keep a perimeter secure and safe? And we also like to make sure that we're providing the best resources for our clients and introducing the latest and greatest to our clients and just trying to stay one step ahead in this industry. I mean, everyone can build fence and everyone can have bike rack and everyone can have tents and things, but it's just knowing how to put it all together and assembling the right teams and the right consultants to do that. So, I feel very, very lucky to be in this industry. I feel lucky to be leading all these teams. Mel, as you talked about it, can't thank you enough for bringing me into this world. It's been cool. It's been a great ride, and I'm enjoying it. And I know there's so much more to come. But
well, again, I'll either take the credit, but I will deny any fault whatsoever.
That's okay. We'll go with the denying also if you need to. So we talk about different things in the episodes that we've had, and we've talked about crowd control, and we've talked about different pieces that go into this, festivals that are coming into play, and today we are going to focus on fence, but we're not just going to focus on the use of security products, but we're actually going to focus on the actual hardware and the fence itself that's used to build these products, because that's very important. It isn't just about putting steel pieces together. It's what can go over curbs and what can go around corners, and what can we try to put up that will help people not climb it, as best as we can. And then we're also going to talk about, what does the future look like? Where's product development going to? And as I mentioned earlier, how do we stay one step ahead in this industry and better serve our clients?
And what do you do when you never have enough?
Well, what do you do when you never have enough? Exactly. Like, who are we calling? How many pieces of fence can we put around? And, I think we all saw that in the inauguration. I mean, there was a lot of fence that went up in the inauguration, but we all saw that there's all kinds of fence that can go up in different and be used in different ways. So as I mentioned, today we're chatting with Dave Mackay. He's the owner of F1rst Fence out of Nova Scotia, Canada. We've worked with Dave on the vendor side, and he's also been a consultant through one of our biggest vendors. We've also used his expertise to design product specifically for us. We've got some really nice VIP barricade that we have that we're bringing in market, that's going to compete with bike rack, because not all of us like bike rack, and I want something that looks a lot better. But that's for that's for another episode and another time. And today we're just going to talk about fence. So Dave, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Good to join. Basically F1rst Fence, we take care of everything from perimeter, commercial, residential fencing as well, perimeter event security, and national conventions, or basically anything that needs perimeter fencing to secure and keep people safe, keep people out, and keep people in. That's what we do.
So Dave, let's kind of get into it. And again, I'm using the aeronautical altitude metaphors from the 30,000 foot view. And this is kind of an obvious question, but I'm hoping for maybe a less obvious answer. Why is fencing so important to security and crowd control?
Well, first of all, you're the first one in and the last one out in an event, and you're building the perimeter. So you're I think one of the most important components to basically building a small town for an event or for a convention or any major event. You're basically
so it's not just the physical asset, it's kind of the intellectual asset of how you design it and what you're designing around.
Correct. Yeah, most of these events are either keeping people safe from coming in and keeping people safe along the perimeter as well. So, you're designing these small towns, if you will, because everybody thinks an event is just put on. Nobody really understands what's put into it. Most of the public just come to these events and they think that, oh, it's here, everything's done. But there's so much more to it, and nobody knows the ins and the outs of what's going on to actually put that production together. It starts with fence because you need a secure perimeter. Most of the major events, concerts and live events, these are paid ticketed events. And, the promoter wants to get as much money as he can of paid tickets and keeping people out. So you'll get the odd person try to jump a fence, in more of the stuff that you guys do. you have cars trying to ram into the fence and trying to breach security. So, and credible threats and all that stuff. And that's even way bigger than the punter that's trying to jump into a concert zone and get a free show.
Well, it's kind of a risk reward scenario where you consider the investment and then weigh that against the risk as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're the first ones there for fencing, and you're creating entrance points, egress points, emergency exits, all these different things that you need to have. And if you don't do it right, you can fail big time. And you have to think of the people that are trying to get into the zone. And that's basically what I do. I'm always looking at stuff that other people are probably not seeing. And that's what we specialize in as far as fencing and perimeter security. But you guys can speak on that as well.
So Dave, you're talking about like the different types and how you're, when you look at designing or coming in to consult with it, is there a difference in product that you would use? So for, as we've talked about, like maybe a political event versus one that's just for entertainment, like a concert or, something at a festival, something like that?
Of course, yeah, political events and everything. Most of the stuff that we've worked with you guys on, we've used the heavy duty barricade, 8-foot barricade to keep people out. And, as we saw at inauguration where they had to add razor wire to it and some creative things like that, which are kind of extreme, applications were put on the fence to keep people out. And that's a constant battle. You don't want to keep somebody out and them get hurt trying to get in, but you want to keep it secure and you want to keep it safe for everybody else that's at the event. You might look at something and you might say, okay, you're doing an event and there's going to be 120,000 people. Well, the first line of defense is fencing, but maybe we need a second line. Maybe we need chutes going certain areas so our security team can navigate through these chutes and the public can't get in these chutes and they can't disrupt any of the security components or being able to get an ambulance through a field of 120,000 people. Or, fencing's not always the number one factor. I've been to events and I've heard it 100 times, but people bring in horses. You got police on horses, and that is, I've seen crowds, they'll move away from horses. They won't move out of the way for an ambulance. If they got horses with police officers on it, they're moving out of the way for some reason. So, fencing's one component, and crowd control, and basically for all these events, you're basically herding cattle, I call it, because you're trying to keep them in different zones. You might have in a major event, a concert, you might have a VIP zone where there's a limited number of square footage for a smaller crowd, but they have more room. Or you could be right to the front of a stage where, people are being crushed up against crowd control barricade and Mojo, which is rock and roll barricade, which our listeners probably don't know what we're talking about, but it's basically the fencing that's in front of the stage that if patrons are crushed up against it, it's not going to fall over, and you can take somebody out of that zone. And because a lot of people faint at concerts, people are dehydrated.
Right. And doesn't that particular product have like a step on the back that could help security or first response people that might have to get to someone in the event that it is an emergency a little easier, so they can step up on the back of it to get over it? Is that what that looks like?
100%. And most of the people that are pulling these people that are, either passing out or dehydration or, medical conditions where somebody goes low with insulin and, whatever it may be, that person needs to pull this person over the barricade, and there's a step on the back. Most of them have a step over on the back, so a security guard or a first responder can pull them over the barricade.
Right.
And that does kind of go to the what purpose a particular product serves. The fence that you guys are talking about right now is, it's really more appropriate to call it a barricade, but it was specifically designed with concerts in mind, or large crowds that there's going to be a quote unquote crush at the front. And So in the back as a mechanism to, mitigate problems that are there at the front. So it's not just the chain link panel that, you see around a construction zone every now and then. There are a number of different products that are out there that do have a specific purpose. And Dave, when you chose your product, did you have a particular application in mind, or was it basically just to fill a need at that time? What was kind of your thought process in, the development of the product that we've all used successfully before?
Yeah, well, our product started basically for, securing construction sites, taking the standard chain link look of a construction site and basically making it more aesthetically pleasing and, more secure. And the application of the product goes up a lot faster than chain link, and it's a lot stronger.
Can we just interrupt 1 second there, Dave? Can you actually tell us what that product is? Is this, I'm like, what does it look like? What is this? What are you referring to? Maybe the audience just needs a better clarification on, we've just mentioned a couple of types of product. We just talked about rock and roll barricade, and we just talked about chain link, but specifically, what does your company focus on?
Yeah, so in the event space and the construction, and as well as conventions and anything like that, we have a product that comes at 4 foot high, 6 foot high, and 8 foot high, with applications to make it higher than that if you need be. It's a modular fence. The system is a square round system, so it's like chain link fence as far as being the first row of defense, but it's harder to climb. It's chain link fence. Everyone's climbed a chain link fence, I'm sure, in your childhood, jumping into an area where you're not supposed to.
I don't know what you're talking about. Never done that.
Yeah, I'm sure Anna definitely.
No, look. Well, also look at the most recent Indy 500, where the winner, whose name now totally escapes me, climbed the fence after he won.
So it's pretty scalable. You can climb a chain link fence. You can get your foot in there, and you can climb up it pretty quick. Our fence, once you try to climb it, and in a bigger setting, in a concert setting, with a long line of fence, you try to climb it, and it springs back on you, and you feel like you should jump off of it before you get hurt. We don't want anyone to get hurt, but you don't want anybody to get in. A fence is put to keep people out, and that's all it is. I mean, if they really want to get in, they'll cut it. They'll get grinders. I mean, in your space, you guys, you have to be ready for cars that are going to try to, smash through this stuff, and all those different components where people are trying to get in to disrupt the crowd or try to do these things, and just to be on YouTube, whatever it is. I don't know.
And by that, do you agree that when we go into some of these events, that what you're referring to, that a car perhaps that could damage the fence, right? That we install, concrete, either 12-foot pieces or 4-foot pieces or whatever it is to, help secure this particular product that you're referring to. Would you agree that that will help it?
Yeah, it will help it. But again, the product that we rep is more to just keep people away from the event and to keep people out. Like I say, no matter what, people are going to try to get in. There's lots of people that just do it for fun. There's lots of people, kids that people jump over an 8-foot fence, like hop it, no problem, jumped into the venue and been back. You have your security inside, but the fencing is just to keep as many people out. The deterrent, but no matter what, like if you have a chain link fence and you're securing a construction zone and you have a lock on it and there's gear there, they'll cut the lock, they'll cut the fence. If they want the gear, they're going to get the gear. It's more just to keep it out, and it's more for insurance purposes too. Where I'm from, they never secured a construction site. It took years for that to happen. You could go to a construction site, there'd be a hole in the ground, and if you fell in the hole, it was your fault. But now everyone likes to sue everyone, so you gotta have fencing set up to make sure nobody goes in there. And if they go in there, then that's on them, and the
The
more,
whole risk management industry.
yeah, the
Hey,
more secure you can make it, it's great. At the end of the day, people will get in for sure.
so yeah, so right now when we're looking at events, and we have to have insurance on our events also. We have to think about, how people are getting in and out safely. It isn't just a matter of keeping people out, and it isn't just a matter of providing ways for people not to get in, but we're also looking at, how once we've built the event and once we have this perimeter, what does it look like, and how safely are people inside of it, and how safely can we get them out of it, even though we've installed all of these layers for them to not get into it. Because in the event emergency, how do we do this? Which leads right into, so Dave, you get hired to come in and you consult with, how we're designing security perimeters. And I know that you've done this at pretty good levels with us. And you've also done it at, very high levels where you are. But what does that entail? What does that look like? When you come in and people ask you to do this, what are you assessing? How do you figure out, what products you have to use and everything, and then, we'll go into like the weather. Well, weather plays into this, but for the most, just start with, tell us, what does that mean? What does it entail?
Yeah, I think you can never have enough fence. What I always find.
As a supplier, we love hearing that.
Yeah, you're always, you can come with a full tractor trailer load, 10 tractor trailer loads, and at the end of the day, somebody's always going to say, "Do you have any more?" So when I get to a site, I'm always telling the vendor or whoever it is, "You're running out already before you even start," because there's so many different places that you can look at and you can put fence, and you guys in the political world and all the different stuff you guys do for conventions and whatnot, you're putting concrete on all this too. So now concrete has to come after you put the fence in. So it's a rush to get fencing in. And the whole time that we're putting the fencing in, the only thing I'm thinking about is worst case scenarios. And that's what's going through my head the whole time.
Well, is one of those running out of product?
Yeah, it's always that, it's always running out of product. It's always running out of gates. Do we have enough gates? You need a gate here. You're always going to need extra, no matter what. There's always somebody and you always want to please the client. So, you want to be seen and not heard type thing. It's one less thing for you guys as the overall project managers to take care of an event. It's one less vendor that you have to deal with. If you know that we're confident and we can do it, then it's one less thing for you to worry about. You don't have to worry about us. We can take care of it from start to finish, and it's going to be done right, and you're going to poke holes in it as well. And that's what we want as well. But we want to be able to say, yes, we can make that happen. And yes, we can do that. Yeah. We don't want to say no, but we want to work with the vendors. We want to work with everybody on site, and we want to make it as safe and secure as possible.
So when you're coming out and you're assessing these things, and are you also helping them figure out A, how many trucks we need, B, how long is this going to take to install and or remove, and C, how do those trucks get into particular areas to put these in? I mean, I know that you've worked with us in that capacity. Is that usually how you come in and do things?
Yeah, at that point when I'm thinking about ripping everything down. We're building, I'm thinking about ripping everything down and getting out, because it's usually a tight timeline. It's usually, you guys, certain events, you only have so much time to do things. So you're trying to be as efficient as possible and set a lot of footage up in a short amount of time. But you're also thinking about the out and when you're going to leave and where you're putting stuff to take stuff down and move trucks and okay, the street's going to be open, so now it's going to be busy, and I'm going to be loading trucks and all these different things that you have to think of, because at the end of the day, you're the first one in and you're the last one out, and you're always going to be stuck with, oh, we can't get to that one last section and we need to go somewhere else. We need to be in some other city or country or whatever, and and we need to get that product and we have to move it. So you're always thinking that way for sure. That's just nature of the beast.
Well, so I've already had a couple of post-traumatic stress syndrome moments based on that last discussion, and takes me back to events that Dave, you've been involved with and I've been involved with. And you're right. The question always comes up, do you have more? And that answer, of course, usually is maybe, but it's all in the planning and the deployment, and where, measurements meet reality, what you put down, where you put it down. And then, of course, as you say, figuratively poking holes in it, the holes kind of present themselves, as you're putting it in. But of course I digress, which is fine. That's kind of what I do. So one of the things, this could come under the proverbial, war stories section that we know and love so well. One of the things that Dave, I'd like for you to talk about a little bit is, what role and factor does weather play in your planning?
Oh, weather's a huge component. You're constantly looking at the weather. Well, I am anyway. You have guys where you have hundreds of people putting up this product. If it's hot, if it's too hot, you're worried about dehydration. You're worried about, sunburns and sunstroke and all these different things. If it's cold and rainy and wet, you're worried about guys getting sick and girls getting sick. And just, you're constantly looking at the element. Wind is not a fact, not a friend of any fencing company or any event company. Wind is so destructive, and you get tornadoes, you get hurricanes, and on top of that, thunder and lightning. That could be the worst one. You have a guy carrying a fence panel and it's steel. I mean,
yeah, I've heard steel and lightning don't mix very well together.
Exactly. So, you got a lightning rod in your hand, and you have to be wary about the safety of your workers and everybody around you. And weather is a huge component. I've worked up north in minus 58, and your skin touches your skin's open to the element for 10 minutes. You have frostbite. And
I'm sorry, is that Fahrenheit or centigrade?
Fahrenheit
or Celsius?
Yeah,
whatever.
Just minus 50, I think it is, and minus 58.
That's still just butt cold, right?
Yeah. I worked up north, and I was working outside, and it was when the camera phones first came on a little phone. It was first camera on a Nokia phone or something. And someone up north is like, "You were working by yourself today?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm just checking something." And I said, "I might as well take my picture." And I looked like abominable snowman. My eyelids were
Nook from the north.
Yeah.
Now, and for our listeners' geographic awareness, when Dave says up north, I mean, we're not talking Wisconsin, Minnesota. I mean, we're talking Antarctica type north.
The Arctic.
Or the Arctic, or whichever is one of those. It's just cold.
Whichever is cold.
Yeah.
Not enjoyable. Not on vacation. Yeah.
No, you're not on vacation. No, you're not.
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
it's
I mean, you have to constantly look at the weather, dear friend.
Yeah. So Dave, so again, I'm trying to recover from some of these PTSD moments. Talk a little bit about what you see, or where you see the future of these products moving.
Yeah, I mean, heavy duty barricade, which we've worked with Premier Global and the barricade that they have and provide. That's as secure as you possibly can get for any major event or any concert. And concerts, a few major concerts use them, and I think more and more will start using them. Just with credible threats, there's a lot of crazy people in the world, and people do some crazy things, and you have to be pretty secure, and you have to worry about the safety of the public and the safety of the patrons. And I think, more and more they'll be using more music festivals will probably be using that product, and on top of many other products as well to keep people safe. I think we talked about this, Mel, with COVID and all these different things that have happened. I think COVID, from you guys tell me down there, it's kind of, okay, we're over it. And music festivals and other festivals are starting to open up, but I don't see any real protocols for fencing and for COVID lines and all these different things. I think it's just back to business as usual. You know, you get vaccinated and you know, and hopefully people aren't sick and spreading the virus, and there's no real any change as far as what you guys see. You tell me what you see down there now.
Yeah, it's interesting because I really do want to talk to some of our other big vendors, and you did actually just mention one, Premier Global Production. I know that they're starting to go back and do their events, and I want to have a follow-up dialogue with them to find out, you know, what was it like? What were people like? Did you put the measures in place? And, you know, did people follow protocol, or is it just a free-for-all now? I mean, I don't know. I'm not suggesting that it was. And, you know, I mean, I attended a concert myself. We only had about 2,500 people there, but we were right next to each other. There weren't really many protocols put in place. You know, I think people walked in with masks, but for the most part, no, it didn't happen. People were having a great time and enjoying themselves. And I know we've mentioned this on other episodes, you know, COVID fatigue is real and people just want to get over it. But you know, also was COVID, and we all have to be very conscientious of what that looks like. And I know that I've seen pictures of some events and people putting up little pods in place with fencing, whether that's using bike rack or even the fencing that you're talking about, Dave. But I'm not seeing that much. I don't know. We're going to definitely do another episode on where that's going right now. But for the most part, I think your company would be able to come in and be able to assess that and provide the resources in the event that that's needed. Correct? Do you see that where you are, that people are looking for things like that?
Yeah, people are looking to Canada, especially is you know, a little COVID crazy, if you will.
I think COVID crazy has permeated everyone's brain.
Yeah.
And you know, you talk about people doing silly shit. I mean, I think it's all, I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I think COVID basically has just made people crazy.
I believe you.
Little bit.
Yeah, I mean, up here, you know, there's different, they want to keep the social distancing, and then want to have little areas. I know I've been working with a few festivals that want to come back, and you know, the government and protocols are making them do little pod areas, and you know, they're going to need more fencing for sure. But at the same time, as a consultant, you know, more fencing is better for me, but it's not good for crowds. You know, if you have a bunch of pods and you have all this fencing and something breaks out, something happens at that venue, and you have fencing everywhere, it can be a big danger. And you got to weigh out the pros and the cons, and I think you need somebody to tell them that, yeah, these are great to keep people socially distanced, but I've painted lines on grass. I've, you know, put paint and said, don't let people go beyond that paint. And some people will listen and conform, but you know, it's up to security to make sure people, you know, I've drawn boxes of paint on fields, and you make sure people stay in those areas, and people will listen.
Don't go in the box. It's mined.
Yeah. People will listen, especially if there's a big security guard telling them they're gonna kick them out. So
that's actually funny. I mean, we've in I'm sure both mine and Anna's history of doing these, the visual perception sometimes will trigger like a Pavlov's dog type response that people, whether there's a barrier there or not, they won't cross it. And if you say, do not cross this line, they're going to say, do not cross this line. And people just won't do it. It's fascinating. So Dave, coming to one of my favorite parts of these episodes, and that's to let you talk about your favorite kind of war stories? What's the one that you can say, I will never forget this, or I will never do this again?
I got a few of those.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, we only have time. Choose your favorite.
I don't know if I have any favorites. The worst experience, you know, I take every event as an experience, and there's always going to be, and it's always going to relate to weather or no sleep. You know, if the weather is terrible and you're cold and you're wet and you don't have the gear for the element, then that's gonna suck.
Miserable, makes it miserable.
Makes it miserable. But if you have the
Yeah.
gear, you're prepared for it, and you plan, and it's not too bad. But yeah, I'd have to say some of the events I've worked with you guys, one in particular, I think you guys all agree it's probably the toughest one was in Philadelphia. And yeah, just no sleep deprivation was the worst. I don't know.
And so just for our listeners' benefit, and Dave's a little shy about bringing this up, but I guarantee you, for me and Anna and, you know, PJ, who's you know, part of our team, it was the Papal visit. Now I can't even remember, was it 2015 or 16?
15.
Yeah. So there were 3 cities, New York, Philly, and DC. I had the dubious distinction of managing all 3. Anna was in Philly, and of the 3, Philly was the most challenging. And there, whatever the reasons, I mean, scope,
size more than anything. I mean, size and amount of product that came into that city, which, you know, goes right back up to what we were talking about previously. I mean, you know, keeping track of the amount of product and constantly needing more product, and, you know, figuring that out. And for our listeners, you probably got a good taste of that when everybody talked about what was happening with the recent inauguration, and they just kept calling for more fence, more fence, more fence, more fence. We definitely had that in Philadelphia. So, and Dave was there right with us.
Yeah, and building too. Like we don't like to build. We really don't like to build twice. That's for a fence. That's not the greatest. We kind of want to get it right the first time, but you know, and it just crushes the morale for your team that are actually building, because they've just built a line and you're like, no, this needs to be moved, or it's in the wrong place, and they're just like, really?
Or you run out of one product, and now your product is going to be modified to substitute for another product that you've run out of inventory.
Right.
I remember I remember most of the calls coming, you know, at 1-2 o'clock in the morning going, we're out of this, we got to do this. And I'm going, okay, good luck, knock yourselves out. But we had a successful event. I mean, and the measure, you know, for success was, you know, nobody died because of our perimeter.
Right.
And the Pope went back to the Vatican, and, you know, without injury or upset.
But the best part about that event, though, and also, again, this is one of the times where Dave was involved in it, is that, you know, when we're doing these, we have to get really creative about how we're using product, and we have to get, you know, really creative about where we're installing product. And, you know, one of my fondest memories was literally having to install something below a bridge because there was a park walkway below the bridge, and we had to think about how we were going to block off pedestrian traffic there. And we had to take one piece of 8x8 fence and literally toss it over the bridge down to the grass area so that we could get a team of people to go down and install it, because we had no way of getting the product down there. But together we had to figure out how to creatively make that work. And I think that that's where teams like, you know, Dave comes in, and product development comes in, and our team comes in, and we look at all this and we just say, you know, okay, this is not the usual circumstance. So how do we make this work? You know, and what is going to work for us, you know, and in addition to sleep deprivation and weather and all of that, you know, we pull our teams together and we create these perimeters that, you know, work, and the client's happy with it. And they're like, how did you do this? And it's like, okay, don't worry about it. We got it there.
But, you know, and Anna, to that point, you know, and we now begin the shameless plug. But that's why you want to engage Arcus, because of our experience, our creativity, and zero failure psychology. But again, and I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this point, but I do want to drive it home. And that is, sometimes you got to think out of the box. We're pretty good about creating, solutions for problems that no one ever thought about, and going that extra mile, notwithstanding weather, notwithstanding sleep deprivation, and being out there and working with people like Dave and our other valued partners that are a part of our business family. It's got to be approached that way for success.
Right. So it's very interesting as we further develop our company, as we further develop these podcasts, so to speak. I mean, as I'm listening to this podcast in my head, I already am thinking about other podcasts that, I need to get some other experts in on this. That's what I'm supposed to be doing with this, but this one definitely. But, again, yes, Mel, as you said, when we bring in people like Dave, and Dave, thank you so much for your time and your effort with this. And we always appreciate when you come on site and show us, where things can be better and where we can improve on things. And, as I said in the beginning, when I was first talking about this, I extremely appreciate it because we want to know what the latest and greatest. We want to know what's going to be out there. We want to know what the future looks like. We want to be ahead of our competitors. And in this industry, that's what's going to keep us, out here, especially with how events evolve and what is happening and what people are going to try and do post-COVID. So Dave, I appreciate your time and I appreciate your expertise. I hope that you feel like this was a good thing for you today. I know you took time out of your day to be able to join us. So we really sincerely appreciate it. And if you need anything from us, please don't hesitate to call us.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me on. I think it's great. And I think the listeners will enjoy it. I'm sure there's a lot more stories that you could put on here.
We don't have that much digital space.
Funny.
Great.
We'd be on here for days. But yeah, I appreciate coming on. Looking forward to work on the next event with you guys.
Yeah,
like you said, we don't
kind of took me back.
Yeah. As you're crying, Mel.
Crying and quivering in the corner.
We might have all been in a fetal position after that event for sure. But we were there to help each other, that's for sure. No, it's great. No, it's always great to work with you and have you around. So I sincerely appreciate today. And for the listeners, we've said it and we're going to say it again. Arcus Group, we're the ones that you should be calling for this. We're the ones that can help you figure out what your event needs. And it can be as little as what's on the interior, but for the most part, we're the experts on the outside. We can pull together the teams that can do this for you. You can reach us at www.arcusgrp.com. We've got great players. We've got, great teams that we can call together. Please don't hesitate to contact us. Subscribe and listen to our podcast. We're pretty much on almost every podcast out there, but we will definitely be back. I think our next podcast, I'd like us to maybe talk about the communication that's out there and how we're communicating, either A, what products are out there, B, how people can, think about these perimeters and think about their events as we look into the future. It's a lot going on. People are coming in fast and furious, and we want to stay with them and work with them, and we want our partners to be there. And particularly with this podcast, we mentioned quite a few vendors, ourselves, Arcus Group, Dave's company, F1rst Fence, and PGP Productions, who we've worked with on a number of occasions. And we greatly appreciate your partnerships and where we've come with all of this. So I thank you for your time, listeners. Mel, you want to close it out for us?
Thanks, Anna. And Dave, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to working with you again in the future. Come down to the good old US of A, where we should go to like Florida or someplace where there are no restrictions for anything, and do that when it's cold up north. And I appreciate the opportunity to be involved in these. I think the content that we deliver is timely. I think talking about, post-COVID stuff, everybody's anxious about that, and I seriously think it's driving people nuts. And me being one of them, but I may have already been there. So again, everyone, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Don't hesitate to submit comments, questions, and feel free to reach out to us.